It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed ran the health departments of both Detroit and Wayne County. 3 weeks ago, he won a U.S. Senate primary by roughly 15,000 votes statewide, and he lost Detroit by nearly 2-1. 7 miles away in Dearborn, he took 78%. In Hamtramck, 82%. Here in Detroit, fewer people voted in this primary than in 2016. About 98,000, down from 126,000. So the question in front of him now isn't only whether Detroit will vote for him, it's whether Detroit will vote. Bishop James Williams is founder and senior pastor of Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries and second vice president of the Council of Baptist Pastors of Detroit and Vicinity. That group supported El-Sayed during the primary. He explores these conversations every Sunday. He speaks for his congregation, not for the city. Bishop Williams, welcome to the Metro.
Robin, thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here.
And we want to hear from you. You can join the conversation. Give us a call, 313-577-1019. Dr. El-Sayed came to win you over, Bishop Williams. Why? What did he say to you?
Well, the more I heard him talk, the more convinced I was that he has a clear understanding of the needs of Michiganders and a willingness to fight for things that others don't seem to be willing to have the same fierce, if you will, fight about. I appreciate the fact that he answers questions directly. One of the first debates that he and Haley Stevens and Ms. McMorrow did was actually sponsored by the Council of Baptist Pastors, and I was one of the moderators. And one of the things that stuck out to me even during the debate while we were asking the questions was that he has direct answers. The answers don't change. He has thought about those answers, and he doesn't hedge. He doesn't hedge even when he knows sometimes that his responses might not be the most popular in the room, but he's also thought about the objections that he will hear. And even if you don't agree with him, you can chart, if you will, his rationale.
So it sounds to me like one of the things that really has struck you about him is that in your eyes, this is an authentic person.
Absolutely.
Based on what you were hearing, what were the reasons people in your congregation voted for Congresswoman Haley Stevens?
I think, well, there are a number of reasons. First of all, for those who actually voted for her, one of the main tensions goes back to the last presidential election and the uncommitted movement that many people in the Black community feel was spearheaded by progressives of Arab descent. All right, so it's a progressive issue and it's a Muslim issue. And so the fact that El-Sayed supported originally that uncommitted movement, that still sticks in the craw, to use a colloquialism, for many people in the African-American community. One of the things that I consistently tried to help people realize is that he was also one of the first Muslim leaders, once Kamala Harris became the party's candidate, to support her candidacy and to back away from the uncommitted movement. I remember the heat that he took from the Muslim community for doing that. But
that was the day after.
Yes.
Biden dropped out, he endorsed Kamala Harris.
Yeah, but that's still a sticking point. And then there are tensions, unfortunately, historically, tensions between the Muslim Arab communities.
We're going to get into all of that because, that is something that's going to take a moment, I think, for you and I to unpack. Before we do that, though, I'm wondering, has anyone you've spoken to said they'll vote for Republican Mike Rogers because of
No.
some of the things you've pointed out.
No, absolutely not. The fear, though, which you mentioned in your introduction, is that they will not vote at all. There is a great deal of apathy in the black community because many of us feel, we don't feel betrayed by the Republican Party. They pretty much have made it clear how they feel about our communities. But many in the African American community feel betrayed by the Democratic Party because we feel that they show up during elections, they make promises, and then once elected with our support, they do not vigorously fight for the issues that we have raised during those campaigns.
So people in the black community, some are saying, hey, we know that we are a powerful block of voters here, and we're actually going to just withhold our vote if we don't feel that this is someone who has our best interests in mind.
And because there's a difference between being a powerful block of voters and being a powerful community. When you say we're a powerful block of voters, that means that we can help candidates win elections. But if those candidates pay us no attention until the next election cycle, then we're not a powerful community. And again, especially with younger voters tend to feel that, what's the use? We're not getting the things that we're asking for. So why bother?
And of course, this feels a bit more pronounced in Detroit, in a city where a lot of folks are struggling, where there's a high poverty rate, and
one of the highest in the nation.
That's right. And we know this is especially among children, among young people. Mm-hmm. And so when you're struggling in this way, it's hard to look at political leaders and see them as being the salvation here.
Mm-hmm. Politics is about the big picture. And when every day is a struggle for survival, you want someone to address those basic issues. Why can't I find decent fruits and vegetables in my neighborhood? Why is all the meat in the meat section? Why is it all sprinkled with this paprika so that I don't notice that it's close to the day it's not supposed to be sold? I'm getting up early in the morning. I'm putting on the one white shirt, the one black tie that I own, and I'm filling out applications, but I can't get a decent job. And if I find one, our region doesn't have mass transit, and so I may not be able to get to the job unless I drive dirty. I mean, these are the kinds of everyday issues that our people face, and they're looking for someone, I believe, that will not only talk about those things, but actually fight for those things once they get in positions of power.
I want to think about a few of the things that you have mentioned. First, I want to go back to the uncommitted movement, because that has remained etched in folks' minds.
Yes.
Here is Adolph Mongo, Detroit political advisor and a longtime Haley Stevens ally, discussing that.
Tit for tat. He didn't support Kamala Harris when she ran for president. He was like, vote for none of the above, that sort of thing. And then when he did come to support, it was half-assed.
Okay, so again, we'll note here that El Sayed did endorse Kamala Harris for president, and she has endorsed him in the U.S. Senate race. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, what do people say when they tell you that they're upset about his affiliation with the uncommitted movement, and how do you respond?
Well, when they express their angst, they sound a lot like Adolph did. What I respond is that he did, in fact, endorse Kamala Harris. I said to one individual, I said, and he did that the day after Biden was no longer the candidate. And the response I got was, yeah, well, that was a day late. I think that politics is pragmatic. I think that what I see in El Sayed is a pragmatist. He stood on a position that he thought was right at the time, and when the situation changed, he took a different position based on the reality that we desperately needed to defeat Donald Trump. Well, obviously that didn't happen, and there are people here in the state that still believe that that movement, in large part, is why we didn't defeat Donald Trump, at least here in Michigan. I have some strong opinions with regard to that as well. Mine have to do with the fact that there was not an openness to discuss it between clergy leaders. There is a group of African American clergy leaders who have always responded when our Muslim brothers have called for us to stand by their side. And during that campaign, our phone calls weren't answered, the emails weren't answered. It was like, no, we're just not going to talk about this.
Who wasn't answering your emails or phone calls?
Muslim clerics that we had stood with before when they had called for us. So, something would happen in a Muslim neighborhood, and they would say, we need some Christian brothers and sisters to stand by us, because hate is hate. And I adamantly feel that way. And we would stand with them, and then we would sit and talk about issues between our communities. But during that campaign, it wasn't just that we disagreed. The issue was that there was a refusal to converse, and that left a bad taste in the mouth. And unfortunately, even though Al Sayed did some things that were different than other Muslim leaders, I think he's being painted with that broad brush.
And again, we're talking about the uncommitted
Yes.
movement.
Yes.
And you're saying that sowed some deeper divisions
Yes.
between Christian faith leaders
Mm-hmm.
and Muslim ones.
Yes. Yes.
Why do you think there was an unwillingness to respond to you and some of the other faith leaders who were trying to reach across the aisle?
Well, Robin, I've thought about that, and I can only tell you what it feels like, because I don't know what was in the minds of those Muslim clerics. But it feels as if when certain issues come up that affect that community, that there is no room for discussion. That, when your issues are on the table, when you want to talk to us about how young African Americans are treated when they come into our stores, well, that's an issue that we can talk about. But when the tables are turned and you have an issue that you feel is impacting you, but we feel it's our issue, we don't have to talk about it. And that's how it feels, and that's why it has left a bad taste in people's mouths.
Why did it not leave a bad taste in your mouth?
Oh, it did. It did leave a bad taste in my mouth. But again, I'm a pragmatist. I am not. First of all, I don't like broad brushes. I try to take individuals as individuals. I have seen instances where El Sayed has gone against whatever the prevailing notion is in the Arab or Muslim community. I have seen him stand on issues when it looked like he was the only one standing on them, but he felt those issues deeply. I can deal with an individual who will have the conversation. We won't always agree.
Bishop Williams, you are of the minority in that you are a pragmatist who's willing to look at a person more holistically and also to compartmentalize when necessary. again, this is not the case for a lot of folks.
It is not.
You know, this has me wondering. I mean, you've told us some people in your congregation are simply uneasy about a Muslim American holding this kind of power. When they say that to you, what words do they actually use?
Well, actually, that particular discussion wasn't with people in my congregation. No one in my congregation has said that to me. Other pastors, believe it or not, have said that to me. My congregation is largely influenced by my beliefs and my stands. I find a way, as most preachers who are proponents of the social gospel, I find a way to bring politics into the message because I believe that, especially in the black church, the church and the preacher must address all of a person's life. It has to be a holistic message. And so every message isn't political, but something weaves its way through. One of the things that I talk about insistently is that we're not fighting people. That's a biblical principle. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, spiritual wickedness in high places. So first of all, we don't hate people. We don't generalize. We don't wipe a whole group of people out because there are bad people who have done certain things. So there aren't many people in my congregation, I believe, who think that way. And if they do, they probably won't say that to me.
I want to note here that something else you're telling us right now, Bishop Williams, is the power that faith leaders in Detroit in the black church have. Because you're saying your congregants are listening to your message and it's one of unity.
Yes.
But there are many others who are not preaching a message of unity, no?
There are those who aren't preaching a message of unity, and we must remember that even though the black faith leader still has a great deal of influence, I don't like the word power, a great deal of influence over their congregants, the percentage of our community that still attends those churches is reduced. So we don't necessarily wield the same amount of influence that we have in the past. I think the influence comes from the fact that as a pastor, we have access to information that our congregants know they don't have. When I leave here today, I shared with you, I'm actually going to a clergy roundtable discussion with Abdul El-Sayed. I met with individually El-Sayed. I met with Haley Stevens individually. I met with Ms. McMorrow. I had an opportunity to sit in a meeting with two other clergy leaders and Jocelyn Benson before the primary. And I don't pastor a major congregation. I'm just a pastor who is constantly working in this field. So I have information they don't have, and they trust that.
You have access.
Access, yes. And the average voter in the city of Detroit does not have that access, and they're not tied into someone who does. And so all they know is what they're getting on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and social media platforms.
I want to think a little bit about something underneath a lot of this. I mean, Bishop Williams, you and I know there's tension between some in the black community and some Arab and Middle Eastern folks, and it goes back generations to the Arab and Middle Eastern people who have owned hundreds of the gas stations and the corner stores in Detroit. That relationship has been strained for a long time. People have died on both sides of the counter. And as you know, residents have many grievances. I mean, it's what's on the shelves. It's where the money goes. It's who works in the stores. El-Sayed has been trying to address this for years. He said some Arab and Middle Eastern business owners here have not been good neighbors. When I asked him about anti-Black racism coming from Arab Michiganders, here's what he said.
There is a responsibility, I think, to recognize that everything from the products you carry to the way that you treat your customers to how you move money in the local community has to signal a kind of respect and appreciation for and an empowerment of that local community. And I think that, again, that conversation has come a very, very long way. But we're in a moment right now where Donald Trump is an existential threat to the well-being of all of us in this state, our ability to afford the basic things, and certainly the Arab and Muslim community, and certainly the well-being of the Black community. You think about the assault on the Voting Rights Act led by the folks that he appointed to the courts. We have to come together beyond differences to recognize that we're all in the same boat now. And we've got a responsibility to come together to build the future that we want.
Dr. Abdul El-Sayed has been having these conversations since 2015 when he was building Detroit's health department. But this is much bigger than him. How does he overcome something that he didn't create or participate in and has been asked to answer for? How do you think he should navigate it?
When Mike Duggan first became mayor of the city of Detroit, you'll remember that Mike Duggan did something that everyone said was impossible. He won that election as a write-in candidate. In the city of Detroit, he did that while running against an extremely popular African American who had served our community well, who was a personal friend of mine. Duggan did that by putting on gym shoes, knocking on doors, sitting in people's living rooms, not just coming through churches, but waiting for the benediction and sitting down in the fellowship hall with the members. He did it by taking hard questions and giving straight answers. He let the community see him. The answer that Abdul El-Sayed gave you is the exact answer that I believe African Americans need to hear from Muslim leaders. I feel it's significant for the relationship between Black people and Muslim people for us to put leaders in place who can go back and speak to their community in that tone. And I've seen El-Sayed speak to Muslim business owners and leaders in that tone. The issue is, can he get in enough places and spaces where people can hear him? I did not start the primary campaign believing that I was going to become a supporter, which I did, of El-Sayed. I was, again, I'm a pragmatist. We need to win. Haley Stevens has the money. She has the backing of the party. Let's just go with that.
You saw her as electable.
I saw her as electable. But the more I heard him speak, as a man of faith, there comes a point in time where you have to decide, are you going to do what is right, or are you going to do what is comfortable? I felt that for my people and for Arab American people and for the people of Southeast Michigan, I believe that he's the individual that can represent us all, but his message has got to be heard. And it's just a matter, I know he's willing to do the work. If he can get in enough places and spaces to be heard, I think he can win people over like he did us.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. My guest is Bishop James Williams. He's the founder and senior pastor of Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries. We're discussing the different political opinions of churchgoers in Detroit. When we come back, another Detroit pastor went to Dearborn last week and joined an anti-Islam rally. We'll play you what he said. And you can join the conversation. The lines are open, 313-577-1019. We'll be right back. It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed ran the health departments of both Detroit and Wayne County. 3 weeks ago, he won a U.S. Senate primary by roughly 15,000 votes statewide. But he lost Detroit by nearly 2-1. We're now wondering why and what would make more Detroiters come out to vote for him. Bishop James Williams is founder and senior pastor of Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries and second vice president of the Council of Baptist Pastors of Detroit and vicinity. That group supported El-Sayed during the primary. He is exploring these kinds of conversations every Sunday. He speaks for his congregation, not for the city, of course. Bishop Williams, I want to think about another faith leader who's got a very different message.
Yes, ma'am.
Recently, Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, who leads the 180 Church in Detroit, was part of an anti-Islamic rally in Dearborn, trying to agitate people, to stir up fear. He began this clip talking about the spirit of Orville Hubbard still being in Dearborn.
The spirit of Hubbard is still in this city. The spirit of racism still dwells in this city. This is a city that has prospered with your mosque and your call to prayer. But yet it's on the back of my people. It's on the back of black people that we have funded everything you do. You look down on us. Your police enact injustice on us. And when Jake Lane talked about Jesus, he was assaulted because you are not up under American law. You are up under Sharia law.
Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, a Detroit pastor who was at the anti-Islamic rally in Dearborn last week. That is a lot of intensity. And I want to note that Sewell prayed at President Trump's inauguration. My question to you is this. Do you think his message resonates?
I think his message resonates with hateful, unintelligent people who are living in a silo, who are unaware of the realities that are taking place around him. I adamantly do not think that the message of Lorenzo Sewell resonates with the average churchgoer in the city of Detroit on any Sunday morning. No matter the congregation, the denomination, he is a definite outlier in our community. I know Lorenzo Sewell. I am deeply disturbed, distressed, disgusted. I have used words like diabolical and demonic in describing some of the things that I've seen and heard him do in recent months. He does not represent Christianity. When he and Jake Lang and I watched that whole debacle last week in Discuss, there was nothing they said that represents the Christ that I find in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and the Gospel of John. Nothing.
Have you spoken with other faith leaders about this? I mean, is there a way that you all think you should be addressing this?
I have spoken with other faith leaders, and the council that I serve as second vice president, we're actually on our summer break. We are back in session next month. I intend to myself propose some things to our president because I'm of the mind that there needs to be a statement from faith leaders, a very strong statement from faith leaders in the city of Detroit with regard to that kind of attitude. You know, he had the president come through his church. And when that happened, you know, the news media, of course, said a Detroit pastor with, you know, at the Detroit church. The people who were in that building were not Detroiters. And so...
but he's wielding some amount of power, as we've talked about, as a faith leader in Detroit. No?
Again, power gets things done.
Influence.
He has... I don't see him influencing anyone in Detroit. He's influencing people who are already a part of that movement. And to be perfectly honest, I don't see him as an influencer. I see him as a puppet being used by the individuals who have influenced him. He is a mouthpiece. When he prayed at the inauguration, my phone was going off. I mean, pastors, we were literally laughing, but the laughter was followed by tears. It was the most hurtful misrepresentation of Christianity that I've seen in years.
I mean, some people listening to this might be thinking, hey, Pastor Sewell is ignoring some really important history here in Detroit. I mean, what I'm thinking about specifically is Masjid Wali Muhammad on Linwood is considered the first and oldest African-American Muslim congregation in the country. Here in Detroit. The Nation of Islam was founded here in 1930. Is that shared history getting lost in this conversation?
Absolutely. History is getting lost in society right now. We're being governed by sound bites. And unfortunately, the 24-hour news cycle and social media means that those sound bites come to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and history is being lost. I remember, I'm old enough to remember Detroit before the riots. My father was also a pastor. My father was also active in civil rights. He worked with Dr. Claude Young, who was for many years the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference here in Michigan. And my father worked alongside of Dr. Young, who was also the cousin of Mayor Coleman Young. I remember when Dr. King, I was a little boy, but I remember when Dr. King came to Detroit and delivered the I Have a Dream speech. Now, of course, I didn't know what I was listening to, but I knew I was listening to a man that was different than every other preacher I had ever heard. But what I remember are the Jewish people who walked up Woodward Avenue with us. I remember that. I remember getting up on Saturday mornings, going down to 12th Street, spending the day. My father and I, we got our hair cut every other Saturday. The Covadis, which I hated but had no choice. But it was a whole day. And I remember we would go to the barbershop, and the fish market that we would go to was owned by a Jewish person. But the corned beef place that we went to, that was owned by a black entrepreneur. I remember all of those things. I remember the conversations about Islam and the original mosque there. And so the way our communities have worked together, all of that's being lost because hatred, unfortunately, is a bigger part of the algorithm.
Do you see Black Muslims and Black Christians talking to each other about this?
Not enough.
What's it going to take?
I think it's going to take an understanding that poverty does not have a denomination. That the inability to get a fair rate on credit when you're trying to take a mortgage. It doesn't depend on whether you're a Muslim or a Christian. If you're brown or black, that rate is going to be different. I think instead of focusing on where we're different, we have to understand that politics is not religion, and that politics should deal with those issues that impact all of the people. We need to start with our common and shared interest. Those of us who are clerics and faith leaders, we can get behind closed doors and argue about whether Jesus was just a great prophet or Jesus was the Messiah. But while we're behind closed doors arguing about who Jesus is, and my personal mantra is that I'm unapologetically Christian and unashamedly black. So I'll have that conversation with anyone. But while we're having that conversation, I still have got to figure out how to get high school children at my church whose grades are higher than their suburban counterparts, but they're having problems getting grants and loans to go to and scholarships to go to school. That's a shared issue. And I think there has to be more of us who are willing to reach across whatever divisive lines there are to talk about the shared issues.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. My guest is Bishop James Williams. He's the founder and senior pastor of Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries. We're discussing the different political opinions of churchgoers in Detroit, and we want to hear from you. You can call in 313-577-1019. You've talked a little bit about your congregants.
Yes.
I would like to know a little more. I mean, you've become more progressive over the years. What are the political leanings of your congregants?
That's an interesting question. I think the majority of them are becoming more progressive with me. I think many of them are following the journey because they have to listen to me every week. I think they've had the opportunity to hear, if you will, the journey that I've been on and understand why I'm becoming more progressive. Obviously, there are some members of our congregation who are some of the dearest congregants who are older, and it's more difficult for them to change. But even some of them are starting to grow increasingly frustrated with the fact that, statistics now say that this is the first generation, and this isn't just for black people, this is for Americans, that we finally hit the first generation in America where our children will not live at the same quality of life than we do. I think that's unacceptable no matter what community you're a part of in a nation that purports to be the wealthiest nation on the face of the earth. So some of them are not moving as swiftly as I have, but I still see movement. And then one of the phenomena at my congregation is that I'm starting again to see young adults attaching themselves to our ministry. And part of the reason that I believe that's happening is because they hear an older pastor who is speaking in progressive ways.
So you're talking like the kids now, is what you're saying.
Pretty much. My youngest is 21 years old. He's actually a student at Wayne State. I'm a Wayne State alum, but he's actually a student here at Wayne State, and he and I have some of the richest and most fulfilling conversations that I have because I listen. He is a great deal more progressive than I am. At times, I'd say he's almost radical. But
What makes him radical in your eyes? What are some of his beliefs that he's trying to get you to come around to?
oh well, let's just say that he. So, I would say that I still believe in capitalism. I just believe that there have to be safeguards put in place. Unchecked capitalism will always lead down a dangerous road. My son is no longer a capitalist. He probably leans more towards socialism.
And what is it specifically about his experiences do you think that led him down that way of thinking?
He's like his father. He's a deep dive kind of person. So he will, people like, well, he has researched people like Bezos and the South African,
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. He researches these people. He looks at the things that they use their money to do. He looks at the things that they don't support, that they don't do. And he has pretty much come away with the conclusion that the wealthy class suck. Suck is a big word for him, that they suck. And I think he uses that word because he's talking to his father. I have a feeling that when he's talking to others, he uses other words. But that's the word he uses with me. And I listen to him. I listen to his friends. I try to talk to younger people and actually listen. I think a lot of times people my age, especially pastors and people of influence who feel that we know more than other people, I think we don't listen as well as we should.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to get a little bit more into how your congregation is changing, what that looks like within the church. This is the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. My guest is Bishop James Williams. He's the founder and senior pastor of Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries. We're discussing the different political opinions of churchgoers in Detroit. That's after Dr. Abdul El-Sayed won the primary in Michigan, but did not win Detroit. We'll be right back. It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed ran the health departments of both Detroit and Wayne County. 3 weeks ago, he won a U.S. Senate primary by roughly 15,000 votes statewide, but he lost Detroit by nearly 2-1. So we're wondering now why and what would make Detroiters come out to vote for him. We're also discussing changes happening in churches around the city. Bishop James Williams is founder and senior pastor of Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries and second vice president of the Council of Baptist Pastors of Detroit and Vicinity. That group supported El-Sayed during the primary. He is exploring these conversations frequently. He speaks for his congregation, of course, not for the city. I want to think about some changes when it comes to Black voters and the Democratic Party. The percentage of Black voters who identify with the Democratic Party fell by about 8 percentage points between 2020 and 2025. That's according to the Pew Research Center. You've said that you've personally become dissatisfied with the Democratic Party.
Yes.
Say more.
The unwillingness to fight for the things that are most essential for the community that I serve. I remember asking, and I'm not going to call the name, but I remember asking a legislator that we had sent to D.C. Why the party wasn't fighting harder for the George Floyd Act and for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. The response I got was that there aren't enough votes.
I'm sure. I mean, the Voting Rights Act, of course, people are familiar with. The George Floyd Act was sweeping legislation that would have increased police accountability on multiple levels.
On multiple levels.
Go
right.
ahead.
And what I was told was, well, yeah, I know I said that, but there aren't enough votes, so we're just moving on to other things. And my response was, I didn't necessarily send you here to win. I understand that there's a Republican president, that Congress right now is controlled by the Republican Party, and that the Supreme Court of the United States pretty much has shown that they're going to rule in favor of whatever. I didn't send you to win. I sent you to fight. I need to know that there are people who are going to fight for what we need because it's right. And you keep fighting until we win. Everything that we've ever won started as a loss. You know, what's the old saying? They'll always say it can't be done until it's done. So to say that my issues, because we can't win on that right now, we're just not going to talk about it. I'm done with that. Because I've been in the unique position, one of the jokes that I play on myself is that I say I'm one of the biggest little pastors in the city of Detroit, because I pastor a relatively small congregation, but my work, and I believe the Lord has given me the opportunity to sit at tables that pastors who pastors congregations my size don't normally sit at. And so in the last few presidential campaigns, I have sat in the room either with the candidates or with the senior advisors to their campaign talking about strategy in the city of Detroit. I was in a room with pastors who said to Hillary Clinton's people, you're in trouble in Detroit and Wayne County. And I remember a good old boy from Texas basically saying, well, I know y'all know the Lord, but I know politics, and we're going to win in the city of Detroit. And what I said to him was, I said, sir, you're going to win. You're going to get the majority of votes that come out of the city of Detroit, but you're not going to get enough votes out of the city of Detroit to swing Wayne County, because there is no enthusiasm, because this party is not saying what we need to hear. Because when you give money to media companies, you don't find black media companies. The party has failed us.
Bishop Williams, though, I mean, this is counter to Congresswoman Haley Stevens, who was a lot more of the same, a very moderate person, and did very well in Detroit.
Yes, she did. Because, again, who voted? Remember that at the start of the program, one of the things that you mentioned is not only did Haley Stevens win by 2-1, but the number of people who voted was down by, I forget the percentage point, but it was huge.
Tens of thousands.
Yes.
About 30, almost 30,000.
And what that says is, see, O-line Democratic moderates, centrists and moderates, they are going to vote. They're old enough to remember when either their parent or their grandparent couldn't vote, and as long as they have breath in their body, they're going to vote. The Democratic Party is never going to lose them. But the Democratic Party cannot continue to win if it does not acknowledge the fact that there are generations now of young voters who will not give their vote unless they feel that they're getting something for it in their community.
Last question for you. You're second vice president of the Council of Baptist Pastors of Detroit and vicinity, and the council came out for El Sayed. How close was that?
Very.
What were the conversations like in that room in the last 30 seconds we have here?
It was a very close vote, almost as close as what happened here in the state of Michigan. I was surprised, to be perfectly honest, that the council voted for El Sayed, and a number of of more progressive candidates. But I think it's an indication of the fact that though the tides are changing slowly, the tides are changing, and that black voters, black Christian voters, are becoming more progressive as this party continues to roll on.
Bishop James Williams is the founder and senior pastor of Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries and the second vice president of the Council of Baptist Pastors of Detroit and vicinity. Bishop Williams, thank you so much.
It has been an absolute pleasure to be with you, Robin.
It's the Metro on WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. We'll be right back after the news from NPR and WDET.